Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Taking a Phyrix podcast, episode 2. I'm Eric, and I'm joined by Lucas and Judd today. We are here tonight to talk about Adepticon 2023 and our experiences there. We're going to go over the good things that came out of it and some of the things we need to work on going forward. Keep the intro really short. I guess let's move right into it. Lucas, do you want to give a sort of brief run over of how the Adepticon 2023 went for us?
Sure. So prior to the actual event starting, as most of you already probably know, we sold out all of our tickets completely for all of our events. We ran 5 different events. We ran our 3-day linked campaign, 3,000 points per day. We ran our 2 Megazium days. Those are all linked together. I think it went really well. On day 1, we had, what was it? What did we say? 46 players. So we had a total capacity of 50. So we had a couple drops, but then we had a couple people, stand by, ready to go, and we went to 46. I think too many people got drunk on night 1 because on night 2, despite having sold 50 tickets, we only had 28 people playing on day
Right.
2, which is perfectly fine. It was still really chill. And then on day 3, something really weird happened. So we actually had 50 people when we started the day. We were completely at capacity. We were able to accommodate everyone who wanted to play except for one guy who was like, I don't really care if I get to play or not. He was like, I've played, basically completely straight for the last 2 days, so I could take a little bit of a rest and I'll play a little bit later. So he wasn't really super like, he was like, I'll play if you need me, but I don't have to. And I was like, all right, cool. And except for that one guy, we were able to accommodate all of our um, like standby people.
Yeah.
On day 3, this is for the main event I'm talking about.
Hmm.
But then after lunch, somehow we came back and we had 52 players.
Right.
We had picked up another table and we actually had to borrow a table from the guys next to us because we had one more guy
Yeah.
than we were supposed to, and I had to find him an opponent. So
Right. Yeah.
I don't know exactly how that happened, but
Adepticon is so funny that way
it was all
too.
right. It worked out.
Yeah, Adepticon's so funny that way too, where
It-
I feel like you have to expect the drops to happen. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people come
right.
there and they're just like, man, I'm gonna get with my friends and I'm gonna just get freaking stupid drunk on Friday night, and they're up till 1 or 2 in the morning. Like when I was leaving the lobby at night at 11:30, you're walking through the lobby and you're just people. Every couch in the lobby is full of people talking and drinking and carrying on. And then you go jump in the
Yeah,
elevator, go to bed, and you come out in the morning and it's just a ghost town. And it's like before you even
yes,
get to the event hall,
absolutely.
that everybody's kind of dealing with the aftermath of the previous night. But I do think we
Yeah,
did.
walking down to the event hall,
Yeah, and I
at
do.
8, it is a ghost town, dude.
Yeah, and I do
It's
think we
funny.
we did do a really good
Yeah,
job of picking up as many people as we could.
yeah, and that's one of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
things of
yeah,
like
yeah, I agree.
it's one of those things that people don't show up till right at the start time because they're just like rolling out of bed and clawing their way to the event hall.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
we gave them 15 minutes. After the actual start time, we were allowing players that were pre-registered to come and like check in with us up to 15 minutes.
Hmm.
And I didn't have anybody that was upset, that came 30 minutes late and was upset that they couldn't, that I didn't have anybody who missed it that wanted to, if they missed it, they just missed it, and that's fine. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. There was
Yeah.
nobody that nobody was upset about the administrative part. I was a little worried that that wasn't enough time, like not enough of a grace period, but
Yeah.
it worked out really well. Most of the people were there before the event actually started, and we started the check-in every day about 30 minutes early. And so the check-in went really smooth. That was a big my wife and Hannah were there doing the check-in and they did an amazing job. Like
Hmm.
we could not have done it without them. They ran the scores and they ran the admin basically, and
Right.
they did a bang up job of it. They ran the merch sales,
Hmm.
they ran all of that.
They
So
did.
that
Yeah.
was awesome. And then on the ZM, the first night we actually added 2 players, so we actually ran 18 players. We ran 9 on each team instead of 8.
Nice.
That was a little bit, I think, of a mistake. I probably won't do that again. I'll stick to my guns and cap it where it's supposed to be capped, but that's okay. And then on the second night, how many do we have? 14,
Yeah, we had
I
14 on the
think.
second
We had
night.
2 drops or something.
Mhm.
14. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll go into that later on things we learned.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
I don't want
absolutely.
to say that like 8 players per team was too many, but I do think the second night ran smoother with 1 less player.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but I think
so
we'll talk
but
about
it's
it
fine.
more in a little bit. There's definitely some varying
Yeah.
perspectives on that. So I do think that I don't know. My biggest takeaway, I was really proud of all the planning. Or actually, let me before I fork off onto that, revisiting what you're saying about the timing thing. I think we made it really well known out there that we're starting at 9, and if you're not there by 9:15, we have to give your spot up, right? Because it's not fair to hold everyone. And
Yeah.
I think we got that out enough that people sort of understood, so we didn't have those late roll-ins really. But honestly, I know one of the things I heard from a couple of the other, or from some of the players over the weekend was they were really, really surprised how punctual our event was. Like we started on time in the morning, we started on time after lunch, we ended on time in the afternoon. But honestly, that was just a product of if we
That was
don't,
very important to
yeah,
me.
right, yeah. It was a huge focus beforehand, right?
Right, because we only had an hour gap between the 2 events. So like not only is that for the players, but that's for the organizers as well.
Hmm.
We need like
Yeah,
we need a
and
break as well, but not only because we need a break, but we had other stuff we had to go do and we only had an hour to do it.
yeah.
And then also I knew that, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here, but one of the problems that we ran into on our first night of playing the ZM was that the other event on the other side of the hall ran late and
Right.
held our players up from coming to our event because they were running late. And
Hmm.
that was a problem I didn't want our people to have.
Yeah.
So having it be on time was important to me. And I'm actually want to congratulate all the players because we really didn't have like a ton of games that were like, I've literally been to events before where people are still in turn 2, like the
Hmm.
top of 2 at at the end of the time when it's like 30 minutes left and they're like, "We're at 2." And I'm like, "Jesus Christ." Like,
Yeah.
and I like socializing and bullshitting with everybody as much as the next guy, maybe more than some guys, but we did hold the players to like a very specific time frame. I think, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like I think we did a very good job of like, like giving them a 1 hour warning, giving them a 30-minute warning, and giving them a 5-minute warning. And then they did a good job of getting the score sheets in.
Hmm.
And if they didn't get the score sheets in, not complaining that we didn't count the score sheets because they didn't turn them in.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it went really good. I think, we did a big brainstorming session um with all of us, a couple weeks out just to make sure that there
Yeah,
wasn't
like
anything
that
we were
week before.
overlooking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and had a good plan going in, I
Yeah,
think, and that
and that
really
was a game changer.
really made a huge difference. Yeah. Yeah, I think
I agree.
the overall reception of what we put out there I think was really awesome. Not only we got good feedback from the players, almost everyone that played with us had a great time. Um, I don't think we only had one minor, like super minor game infraction kind of deal where someone didn't quite have the game that they
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
only
have.
had one sportsmanship
But then that easily
problem.
basically
I
remedied
don't even want to say
itself.
sportsmanship. That's not really the right word.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. We had one kind of complaint
Hmm. But
um, in the very last round of the very last day.
right.
So like, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
as the weekend goes on, it starts to run a little hot. People are tired, man. It
Oh
gets
yeah.
like
Yeah.
No,
They
and by
get that
that,
playing
con
that many
fatigue.
games in a row is hard.
no, for sure. And
Yeah,
by that
exactly.
point,
And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to belittle that, their experience or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, to only have one complaint, I think, is a pretty, like, it speaks to the caliber of the players that we
Right.
had.
Absolutely.
We had good players.
Yeah, because I think when it's all said and done, I think there was like 128 games played or something like that over 3 days, something in that range, including the
that sounds
two
about
mega
right.
ZMs, right? And to only have one minor, I mean, and when I say minor, it was super minor. It was fixed within 10 minutes. It was not a problem. So I feel like that
Yeah.
was really good. And then,
Yeah.
I was really excited because even the feedback that we got from players that weren't in our system, like I ran into several people that were just like, man, you guys look like you're having a blast over here. Everything seems to be running really smooth. Next year I'm going to be over on the Phyrix side, or, I'm going to be trying for the Phyrix side. We're going to, not that we're in competition with the other heresy groups, but it's nice to hear when other people that aren't directly involved with your product are respecting your product. You know what I mean? Or interested in it. So
Yeah, still recognize
Mhm.
that they like what they see, even if they're not a part of it.
Yeah. And I tell you another thing that
So,
really
and we realize that
go ahead.
a lot of one of the reasons that a lot of people that weren't a part of it is two reasons, I think. One, they weren't able to get the ticket that they wanted, or you know what I mean, like that was some people for sure, is that it sold out so fast that they couldn't get the ticket. And then some people, like, I know that on the other side of the room, this is a shout out to those guys, they're really great dudes. They ran, like, a little bit different formats, so like people that had like lower points
Mhm.
armies, like the guy, the White Scars player that joined us at the ZM,
Yeah.
like he didn't really have a whole army, so
Right.
he couldn't play 3,000 points. And so, like, we didn't really do I don't know how we could have really accommodated that, but like they were really great at accommodating that on the other side of the hall. Like
I
Alex
have some
from,
ideas.
Alex
Yeah.
and Dan and Zach and them were really good at accommodating that over there.
Mhm.
Whereas our event is a little bit more structured and doesn't really have like room for, if you don't have exactly what we want, it doesn't really work. So
Yeah.
they're a little bit more flexible than we are. Their event is definitely more flexible,
Yeah.
which is nice to have both options.
It definitely is. I think that's
So
what makes the whole heresy
yeah, and they had
Nirvana
just a ton
room
of
so
different
great.
formats too. They
Yeah.
had a team. That was the second thing I was going to say, is that they had a team format.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people wanted to play. It's evidence that they had 116 players playing at one time
Right.
at their event. It alongside our guys playing. You know what I
Right.
mean? These are 116 different individuals playing.
Right.
So like they had a ton of guys playing teams. And the
For
guys
sure.
that played the teams looked like they had a blast. There was a couple lists in there that I was kind of like, oh.
Yeah, we were talking with Max
But for the
a
most
little.
part, everybody looked like they had a great time in the teams.
Yeah, we were talking with Max earlier, and I guess he had the joy of playing against. This is an outlier. Let me clarify. He was very praisingly
Right.
of the guys running the list that he ran against, but it was Sisters and oh, what was it?
Oh, it's
Never mind.
Pauly.
Was it Polly? Yeah, he said the guys were
Sisters and Fury.
absolutely super great. Yes.
Pauly's a really good dude.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
his partner's name, but I've played with Pauly before, and he's a good dude.
Yeah. But yeah, it was, that's one of the things I really appreciate about us being in the Nirvana Hall too, is that because we're right next to the other Horus Heresy events going on, it kind of makes it feel cohesive. We can, cater directly to the 3,000 point narrative crowd, and then everybody that needs something else or wants something else, there's places to get that during the week.
Right, and that's another thing I wanted to shout out them for, is by running these formats that are not the same as ours, they're allowing us to focus on a certain experience that we
Mhm.
want to provide, and we don't have to accommodate all of these different styles of play,
Right.
and so that actually really helps us. So I'm really glad that they have the room and the time and the space and the energy to run something else as well. I think that's actually really important. We had kind of talked a little bit about, like, oh, we want to don't let Dan hear me say this, but we want to take it over, kind of thing. But I really actually like that there is another option.
Yeah. Oh,
as well.
absolutely. As much as that joke might come up, but it's so
That's more of a
unrealistic.
joke. Like,
It's so unrealistic. We
yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
we all. I mean, we have a 4-person crew working on Phyrix, right? And you just think about the amount of hours we dumped into getting Adepticon off the ground. I just can't even imagine trying to figure out a Teams thing, a small point battle thing, just the big blam thing. Like, it just so much is
Right.
happening. It has to
Exactly.
be organized, right? And I think it was really
Yeah.
awesome. This was my first time. Obviously, it's my first time running an event, so my first time working with Zach. And I've talked to Zach before the event, but first time like working with him, and it was really awesome to have the other like major. For those that don't know, Zach was running or corralling most of everything else going on in the hall. If he wasn't running it, he had his hands in it really deeply. So shout out to
Yeah.
Zach for running some awesome events on the other side and letting us do our thing, man. you
Yeah.
know, but to
Yes.
keep,
Shout out to Zach for basically, he's the guy who actually organizes with Adepticon.
Mhm.
Like, he's kind of our liaison, and he
Yeah,
did a great job of wrangling all the cats and figuring out all the answers to all of our questions. He did a really good job. So we couldn't have done it without him.
absolutely. I'm actually gonna shift over real quick. I'm gonna just throw up some event photos for everybody while we're talking about this, so you guys can get a picture of it if you weren't able to attend. Um, so I guess keeping on
I have
the
a
go ahead.
I got one more thing of some people that I want to thank. I know we're gonna have a thank you part later for our sponsors, but just some individuals that I wanted to thank.
Hmm.
I really want to thank John Christensen.
Hmm.
He banged out, I think, 5 tables since
Yeah.
January 1st for Adepticon. He did, and let us, bring them all the way from Texas and all of that. Like, it wouldn't have been possible to have 50 players without him. We wouldn't have made our
Hmm.
commitment without him. So he had maps, he had tables, all of that. I wanted to thank him personally. John
Hmm.
Christensen's from the Adepticon Accountability Buddies podcast.
Right.
If our viewers are not familiar with them, go check them out. Sometimes I co-host over there, but John's basically one of the main hosts over there, and he's a really good dude. He lives here in Dallas with me, and I also wanted to shout out Cody McGearty
Yeah.
for driving the Phyrix mobile. He drove all the way from Victoria, Texas, which is 23 hours from Schaumburg. Um, he drove it all the way to Dallas, and then loaded up the shit for my storage unit, stayed a night in Dallas, and then drove all the way to Adepticon the next day. And then
Yeah.
while I got to board a plane and fly,
Hmm. Yeah. Cody's an awesome
he also
dude,
drove
man.
with another guy named Chris Locker.
Yep. Chris is cool
Yeah,
too.
he is. And he was one of our most energetic players the whole weekend as well. He had a really fun list,
Hmm.
and he definitely was in the spirit of the game the whole time. He won multiple sportsmanship awards. I know
Yeah.
he won one. I don't know if he won more than
He
one,
was in
but
discussion
he won
every
a
day.
sportsmanship award while he was there.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, he was in the running every day. Exactly. So I wanted to thank him. And then we also had Chris Locker. Those are both guys from TFL, the Forgotten Legion. If nobody knows who they are, that's a South Texas group. They do some live streams sometimes on Facebook and Twitch and stuff. So you should check them out on Facebook. Um, Locker drove with him, helped him, all of that. But one of the things I really want to shout Locker out, Locker helped us set up the magazine.
By
I say
himself.
help. He really just did it all
By
by himself
himself.
for almost 2 hours,
Yeah.
setting up the
If
Megazeum
anybody,
and knocked the layout out of the park.
oh,
He did the layout very well.
it played really, really well. I made
It
sure to
played
get,
very, very
I
well.
made sure to
We
get
didn't
some
really
really
tune it
good,
hardly at all
I made
after
sure
he
to
set
get
it
some
up.
really good pictures of the length of the thing so that we can hopefully try and borrow from his ideas going forward. No, shout out to both
Yeah,
of them,
because
like
it was like
hugely.
A1. I don't know that we could have made it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
He did
They
a
were,
really
they
good
were
job.
definitely really awesome. And dude, for anybody that's interested, if you go over to our Instagram, you can actually see a time lapse of us setting up the event, and you see Chris sitting there for like half the video.
Yeah, half of it is just him
Like,
setting up
he's
the
just
scene.
setting it up by himself. I felt so bad, but he was also really, 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 really fast with it. You know what I mean? For being one person,
Yeah.
it was like up
Yeah.
by the time we had, put our tables up. But yeah, shout out to them both. Shout out to John. Really wasn't able this wouldn't have happened if any of those guys didn't help, Um, I guess
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm not quite done with my shout outs. I know we have but I have a lot because we could not have done it without a lot of different people coming together. So
Mhm.
like I wanted to shout out the rest of the team. I want to shout out you, Eric. I want to shout out Judd. I want to shout out Porter for all helping us the whole time. We could not have done it without any one of you guys, not just me, but anybody. Everybody pitched in. Everybody was up in late night phone calls, figuring out the rules, figuring out the printing, figuring out the painting, figuring out the logistics, and it would not have run as smooth as it did without everyone's input.
Mhm.
So thank you guys.
Yeah, buddy.
And I wanted to thank Mike O'Brien from Beard and Brush Studios. He painted some of the NPCs for us. He did a really good job on those. He painted like the Sisters of Silence. He painted the Eversor Assassin that looks like Deadpool. He painted a couple other things. He painted the Davenite Lodge Priest.
Mhm.
He painted a couple NPCs for us. They look great. Porter did some NPCs for us. One of my buddies, his name is Pandios. He's here in Dallas. He painted the crew for the Reaver Titan that we raffled off, and free of charge. He did that for me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing. Oh, I'm sorry. Duncan Kendall and
Duncan.
Martin Emery both painted NPCs for us.
Yeah.
Just a couple each, but it added to the overall experience.
Yeah.
So
Secondary shout out to
thanks
Duncan.
to every one of those guys.
Yeah. Secondary shout out to
Yes,
Duncan for
Duncan
bringing me
also gave us some cool posters.
and brought me a ginger ale that I haven't had in like 16 years. And I had a dang near a religious experience sitting there having that. No, all those
Yeah,
guys,
that shit slaps.
it takes to run a big event. It takes a lot of people, and we're lucky enough to be surrounded by some people that really lean in and not only believe in what we're trying to do, but are willing to volunteer their time, and that definitely means a lot.
Yes. Yeah, we had a great time, and like I said, we couldn't have done it without all of those people, as well as all our sponsors, which we'll go over in a minute,
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
little while.
absolutely. And I just sort of wanted to pivot a little bit and talk about our tables and the room and our experience there. So like, I think our table game was or our table layouts was one of the things that I consistently heard good things about, right? I think overall people were really, really happy with the terrain that we had, the amount of it. Um, we've done a lot of talking internally and obviously playtesting through the time with Phyrix to kind of tweak these tables and get them sort of dialed in. And I think most of the tables achieved the goal that we wanted them to achieve. Even if a couple of them probably could have had their mission tweaked just a little bit or their layouts tweaked just a little bit to support the missions that they were supposed to be on there, but
Yeah,
overall I think it went really
that's
really well.
probably my like biggest disappointment. And it's not that bad. I'm not like saying like it was a huge deal, but I'm just saying like that's probably the thing that I feel like if we had a little bit more time, maybe we could have tuned that a little bit better.
Hmm. Yeah,
But we did the best with what we did, and I think overall it was a good experience. But I've had several people tell me that that's the only thing that they like really felt could be improved upon,
yeah,
like a lot. Not a
yeah,
lot, but like a couple of the tables. You're right. The mission didn't really. It fit the tables, but like some of the deployments, like exactly where the terrain was placed, didn't fit the
yeah,
deployments well,
yeah.
and that has to do with some of our tables have really bulky terrain. Like the
Hmm.
shantytown is problematic because of how bulky some of the buildings are. They're
Right.
huge.
Yeah.
Like one of the buildings is like 12 by 12 by 8.
Right.
So
Yeah.
no matter where you put it, it blocks out this huge portion of the table. It's like that's like
Hmm.
10% of the table in
Yeah.
one building. So it's really tough to get that to make it to where like if you put it in a player's deployment zone, it could block like up to a third of their deployment zone.
Yeah, true.
effectively.
Yeah, I think the
Where
tables
they
that
can't even
had
deploy their models.
I think the tables that had issues really just needed a little bit extra attention by the people that are familiar with them, like me and you, or Andrew, who have
Yeah.
like played that mission on that table, and maybe we could have reorganized some stuff or tweaked some stuff last minute. But I know that that's something we've taken internally. It's already on our board for things we want to improve going forward.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to shift to is actually like photographed hard, like event level setups, right?
Layouts.
Yeah, this is exactly where this goes. This is exactly where this
Yes.
goes. Because for the most part, most of our missions already align to a table set. It's just a matter of getting that static. Like if I set the table up, if I've played it before, I'm going to be able to duplicate what's been there before, no problem. But sometimes, I think one of the things I learned from this, especially with the table setup stuff, is as much as you think you have a good idea of what's going on all the tables, it's hard to micromanage 20. Like you can't micromanage 25 tables, right? Stuff gets moved. People put their display boards up.
Not with just a couple dudes.
You're right. Yeah,
either.
And so I think it's one of those things.
You need a team of a dozen guys
to
do it.
I think it's one of those things that
That's not realistic.
We just need to, do a little bit better with. I think getting it photographed, getting it set up the same way every time is going to be huge. That'll fix that and sort of knock that out of the park. But overall, like I said, I
bought the hover cam.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's something that's like in the pipeline to do.
Absolutely.
I have the equipment now that can easily do it. So
yeah. Absolutely.
That's something we can do.
And I think overall, like I said, I got a lot of feedback. Well, so if you weren't at Adepticon, we were actually positioned by what I call the main entrance to Nirvana. There's two big doors, but this is the one, we were next to the one that's right by the escalator. So we had a ton of foot traffic through our room. Horus Heresy always tends to draw traffic. But because we were in our proximity to Golden Demon, I think it even pulled even more. That and the raffle that we had going, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the Golden Demon display cases.
Yeah,
were right there, right on the like the escalators come up, and then you have like our room, and then Golden Demon's display is like right there. So you have to, if you're coming up the escalator, you have to walk past our first door where we are sitting to go and do Golden Demon.
Yeah.
To go and look at Golden Demon. If you're walking up the stairs or the elevator, you have to walk past our room to go to Golden Demon. And if you're walking from the bar, where everybody's walking from, you have to walk past our room to get to Golden Demon.
Yeah.
So like we had an excellent spot. I love the Nirvana ballroom. I love being kind of isolated up there so that you don't have to worry about like your stuff. I'm not saying no one's ever had anything go missing, but we don't really have problems with stuff going missing. People leave thousands of dollars worth of miniatures, books, electronics up there all the time. We don't really have a problem with it. There's always somebody in there that like knows what's going on pretty much, like even if it's not one of us, it's one of the guys that we know really well. So like they're kind of keeping an eye on everything. And so we never had a problem with any of it. We left tons of stuff up there every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Usually not while no one was there, but like I said, we don't have a problem with that. So we're kind of isolated, but also visible.
Yeah, it's the perfect
best
balance
of both worlds.
Yeah, it's the perfect balance. We got a lot of people through, like I said, and it was really cool to give people a glimpse of what, a really well done Heresy event looks like across the whole room, not just us, right? Across the whole room. You look across, the tables are all top tier. You know what I mean? Everybody's armies look amazing. It was really, really awesome. I think another thing that went really, really successfully.
Let me tell you, judging those awards was very difficult. Every day there were multiple people that I felt were in the, the 95th percentile. Or whatever, where not very many armies are better than these that we have there. Every single day there were multiple armies that could have easily won. And so like it was very hard to choose. And none of us are pro painters. None of us like,
Right.
you know, I hope we pick the right armies. Really, it was more judges' favorite armies than it was the best painted. Like we obviously took how well they were painted in consideration, but like none of us are really super qualified to judge.
Right.
But it was so hard because there was so much good stuff there, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say.
Especially
It
on
was
day
very
3.
hard to judge.
Day 3 was
Are you trying
definitely.
to say?
Yes.
What's up, Judd?
Oh no, go ahead.
No, go
What?
ahead.
I was gonna say. So you're saying you always voted for Dark Angels, Lucas?
No. Only one
No.
Dark Angels army
Yeah,
won
only
best
one.
painted.
It was actually always weird
It was in the
armies.
ZM.
It was a lot of weird armies. There was one Alpha, I think one Alpha Legion, one Salamanders,
Nice.
one. Can't remember what the other. Oh, Night
No, the
Lords.
Thousand Suns guy on day one,
Oh yeah,
his stuff was dope. The
yeah.
Thousand Suns guy on day one,
Hmm.
that guy, like his marble was super good and all of that.
Yeah.
And then the Night Lords guy, we
The last day with the hand
see, we
painted.
should have done a better job.
Yeah, with the hand painted.
That was on day 2.
Yeah, that
Where he
was
had like the
amazing.
Mark 1 Land Raiders and stuff with the freehand on the side.
Oh, dude, and
I think we picked that guy for day 2.
yeah, and he was up for like that and best narrative
His little
because,
trophies.
dude, his flayed bodies that he would pile up behind his warlord as he was killing units. It was
Yeah.
I that guy's army was untouchable that day. I was just like,
That's a cool narrative
Yeah,
touch.
he had
Yeah.
like little flayed men that were like tied to like posts that whenever his warlord, because you know he has the thing where like whenever you kill a guy, your warlord like kills a unit or whatever, you
mhm,
get +1 fear.
right.
Uh-huh.
Every time he got +1 fear, he would like pull out another one of these like little flayed man tokens, and they were so good,
Yeah,
so well done.
They really were.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's
And
definitely
his army was like the right mix of old school and new.
Mhm.
Like he had like RTO1 stuff and he had new stuff and it looked great together.
It
He
did.
did a good job of like making it all feel cohesive despite the scale difference. Like,
Mhm.
you know, he did a good job. I
Yeah,
liked his
another
stuff
one
a
I
lot.
really liked, the salamanders with the heavy rust effects, like slash dust
That
effects
one
on
was
them.
awesome.
That
The one with
guy
the really good
not
bases.
only the really good bases, and not only did what I loved about him was he
That guy
brought a
played in all
completely
like
different
4 out of
list.
5.
That guy brought in a completely different list from day 1 to day 2. So day 1 was like a combined arms with tanks and everything. And I think he was in the finalist for one of the better painting armies. And then the next day he brings all infantry, no vehicles, and it was like, okay, you were already a finalist yesterday. Like you're in this running, and I think we ended up giving it to him that day. Then he won best weathered later on at some point. It was really really good. I was
He won
really
best
happy with the
weathered in the
competition.
ZM, I think.
Yeah, I was really happy with the
Yeah,
competition.
he was in like 4 out of 5 of our events, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Another thing I'd like
That's
to give
awesome.
ourselves kudos for
I
is
just want to shout that guy out.
Mhm.
The guy with the salamanders. I just want to shout out his NPC moment where he had the enforcer with the dog
Mhm.
and somebody killed. They like precision. Oh, Conrad Kurz like precision
Mhm.
shotted his dog out of his unit
Yeah.
because they thought that would be funny, and it turns out that that guy was Johnny Wickius, and we took his enforcer away and gave him a Vindicare Assassin and was like, he's back in.
Yeah.
And his Vindicare Assassin lived until the very last game.
Mhm.
Like that was
That's
on day
awesome.
1, and his Vindicare Assassin lived like the entire time to like the
Yeah.
very last day, and they finally killed the Vindicare.
And
And
every
we had like
game-
this huge bounty.
Yep.
We were like, yeah, the mobsters keep putting more bounty on him.
Mhm.
It was awesome.
It was very
so
very
good.
cool. Yeah, it was very cool. Yeah, I think we did a great job on that. I think the NPC system as a whole and the Archaeotech system
Yes.
totally received absolutely like we wanted it to. There's a couple minor tweaks we're going to do on
They
the
actually
backside.
did way better than I thought they would.
Mhm. We're going to do some tweaks on the backside, but for basically, I mean, this is a system that'll be, baseline with most of the Phyrix stuff going forward. I don't ever see us moving away from it. Just sort of revising it and getting it down. Another thing I was very happy about too was the amount of. So we were lucky enough to get a lot of sponsors for Adepticon, and we had a ton of prize support, which made it so easy to reward people for cool moments. And when guys did good things, sportsmanship wise or whatever, you can literally walk over there and just give them a prize from the prize support wall. That was huge. I think almost immediately people saw that, people are getting prizes in the middle of the round, and, word gets around, and I think it helped sort of reinforce the attitude that we're just here to have a good time, and I think that was really good on our part. I think our efforts there were really well worth it, right?
I agree. We had some really cool like faction specific prizes that we gave to like the sportsmanship, the best sportsman on both the teams. We had those cups or the bottles from Grimm Brothers that Josh had made for us that had like Phyrix logo on one side and Aquila on the other, and then Phyrix logo on one side and Aya Horus on the other. Those, he does great work.
Yeah,
that's what we all have.
Well, next,
if he's listening to this, he should make it easier to buy these cups.
Yeah,
that would be my only feedback for him, is that it's hard. They're hard to buy.
Yeah.
And we want to spend the money. It's just hard to buy them.
Yeah, man, you talk about a great player in the Horus Heresy space, though. That guy.
I know.
I mean, everybody he played with had an amazing time. He's
larger
than life
everywhere he goes.
Super charisma, like just loud and boisterous, but in a great way. And just honestly, it's a delight to see him when he comes. You know what I mean? You never forget meeting him,
right?
And he's really, really awesome. No. So I guess the last.
So he hooked us up with those, and then my buddy. I'm sorry, the coaster sets, the Eye Horus and Aquila coaster sets are actually a buddy that's local to me that I can make those for anybody that wants them. So if somebody wants them, they can reach out to me and I can get them made.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, the last thing I really wanted to sort of put on our praise pile is obviously with this year being in memory of David, we set up the charity raffle and we donated all the proceeds from Adepticon towards that, right? And I think
yes,
we raised a really, really good amount of money for that. And I don't know, it was kind of heartwarming, I guess, in a way, to see. It's just a reminder. I think the heresy community is one of those that just constantly helps regardless. And raising that money, seeing all the people
they are
donating,
exceptionally generous.
Yeah, and just seeing all the people donating, and just obviously we had really cool prizes to win, but just the constant
that helped, I bet.
Yeah, the constant input, though, I think also was nice to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about
it exceeded my wildest expectations as far as the charity raffle. So for those of you that don't know, we had a fully painted Horus Heresy Dark Angels army. It's fully magnetized. It had full battle foam, like custom battle foam. It was pimped out. Like everything you could want, it basically had. And we gave that away. You could either win that or you could win a fully painted and magnetized Reaver Titan.
Mm-hmm.
And between the two, as well as our merchandise, profits from our merchandise sales, we raised over $10,000 for Hannah to take home and help get her back started again.
Yeah.
After this loss. So I think that is like I said, that blew me away. That was more than our wildest expectations. I'll be honest, when me and my wife, we went to go buy the tickets, like the actual tickets that you put in the jars. And I was like, I picked up the roll the one roll, and I was like, "Do you think you need 2 rolls?" And she's like, "No way." And I was like, I know these guys. I was like, "I think you need 2 rolls." And we almost used 1 full roll. We had been pulling from both rolls, but
Hmm.
if we had only bought 1, we would not have had enough.
Right. Yeah. No, it was awesome.
So that is like, it's wild. Yeah, I'm like really, really blown away. I wanted to thank everyone who donated, everyone who tried, who bought raffle tickets, everyone who bought merchandise, anything like that. Um, that kind of goes into our next point, though. As far as merchandise goes, we had some merchandise that was available there to purchase. We had a memorial miniature for David, which we will continue to sell going forward. We had some dice bags and some posters that um, Duncan had. Well, the whole Accountability Buddies podcast had put on our table to
Hmm.
anybody who played in any of the Horse Heresy events got a poster for free. But if you wanted to purchase, there were 3 different posters. If you wanted to purchase one of them or more, whatever, you could buy them. And Duncan donated all of the proceeds from the sales as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah.
So, like, thank you, Duncan, and to the
Yeah.
Accountability Buddies guys. They're doing a second run of those posters over on Accountability Buddies.
Hmm.
So, and they've already turned the most popular poster into a shirt that just went live today. So go check them out if you want their art on a shirt. It's like a world eater. It's Kurt Metz, so it's like super nice art, and
Hmm.
it's a world eater, and he's like pointing and he says like, "I want you for Horse Heresy."
Yeah.
It was the
I've
most
actually
popular
seen
poster
that
by
shirt
far.
recently. I
They
Yeah.
saw
turned
the
it
picture of
into
that shirt.
a
Yeah.
shirt. Yeah, they just launched it today, I
Hmm.
think, or
Yeah,
yesterday or something.
Yeah.
it was
But
in
yeah,
one of
go
my
check it out.
feeds.
Shout out to the Accountability Buddies guys again.
Very reasonably priced for a custom shirt as well. For
Mhm.
like the way they've done it, very reasonably priced.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah, and
not a $35 shirt, right? Like it's
right.
really well done.
They definitely deserve the support. They as you can tell from just our discussion here, they pretty much jump behind anybody trying to do something in the space, and it's a big group of guys, and they the amount of stuff
Exactly.
they can do, the connections they have
Exactly.
are just they make you remember to do stuff that you might let slip or whatever. They're all really well experienced. I know we're really lucky to have them in our corner for sure. Um,
Right. And one more thing about them. One of the guys on there, Jamie, he does I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Toys for Tots, the Horse Heresy Toys for Tots thing that they
mhm,
do. Like they do
yeah.
eBay auctions every so often. They did, I think the most recent one, they did a Citadel Realm of Battle board, fully painted Realm
Mhm,
of Battle. That they donate all the proceeds to Toys for Tots. They get the items as donations, and then somebody donates their time to paint them, and then they sell them on eBay and donate the money to Toys for Tots. The Jamie, the guy who organized all that, is also on Accountability Buddies. So
yeah,
they're just a hotbed of activity for all kinds of different
for
stuff. They're
sure.
about to launch a really cool Patreon, so like I said,
Yeah,
definitely check them out.
absolutely. So yeah, I think
I'm sorry,
overall,
we didn't actually get to what I wanted to talk about. The swag. The
uh,
relaunch of the merch store. Is that what you were going to go on to?
yeah, I was going to. But yeah, I was just gonna say,
Okay,
like
my bad.
overall, we have it's all good. Overall, we have we had a really really good experience. I think generally speaking, there were just a couple of things to walk away from. Obviously, we talked about the table layouts and getting those nailed down. That's a pretty easy fix. But like you mentioned, Lucas, we did have some issues with our current swag provider with getting T-shirts delivered on time before Adepticon, and so we've been talking internally about that,
Or at
and
all.
or at all, period. So we've been talking
Yeah,
internally
we're
about
having a
that, and
problem. So I've actually already delisted the merch store.
mhm,
So I mean, you could still find it if you search for it, but
mhm,
there's not a link to it anymore on our website or link
right,
tree. So we will be relaunching the merch store very soon, like in the next week or two. We have a new provider. We're gonna use the same provider that they're using, the
mhm,
Accountability Buddies guys, and also Ned from Ineptus Astartes. Uh,
mhm,
That's the same provider. They all use the same provider. We're just going to go to their provider. And hopefully that'll let us actually fulfill orders and also create new merchandise. We have quite a lot of ideas for new merch too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so keep posted for that. Our link tree is constantly being updated. We do a pretty good job of auditing it, getting new stuff up, getting old stuff out. So if you need to know anything going on with us, it's
yeah,
in
we
there.
just cleaned it up a little bit today.
hmm Yeah. So I guess what I wanted to do as we sort of shift up our roundup of Adepticon is for the people that weren't able to attend, I did want to go and just go ahead, if you guys are cool with it, and drop the final audio narrative in our podcast. So we have the complete story of Adepticon over these 2 episodes. So for anybody who may not be aware, there are 3 chapters on this that are set before this. This is the audio that dropped after the last day of the narrative game. Sort of tells the story leading out of Adepticon and what hints maybe a little bit at what's going to be going on forward. We'll jump to that now, and we'll be back with you guys in just a minute.
As the final engagements rage towards their ultimate climax, each side has established critical footholds within the industrial and urban zones which ring the mysterious central spire. Despite multiple attempts, none present have any success determining entry points to this final objective. The dull grey spire stretches skyward for miles, its nearly pristine geometry interrupted by smooth curves of lighter grey protrusions in a pattern that encircles the tower as it reaches towards the orbital station overhead. Determined to be the first inside, infiltration crews from the traitor legions approach the base of the tower, attempting entry by any means. Melter charges and breaching explosives detonate with a thunderous boom. Deep echoes reverberate through the war zone and buildings around the tower. Barely perceptible over the din of battle, a deep hum fills the air, radiating like a wave from the tower. The vox and augury systems of the forces engaged nearby crackle with interference. From the tip of the spire, a solid green beam reaches to the heavens and is collected in the central receiver dish of the orbital station above. After several seconds, the beacon extinguishes, and the humming dies with it. Aboard the station, boarding parties have engaged in bitter combat, neither side having been able to seize complete control of this ancient facility. Despite the near-constant fighting, some of the ancient systems have been restored to partial functionality. Bullet holes, twisting bulkheads, and fallen Astartes litter the floor, as nearly every corridor of this orbital has seen combat. Only aware of the fighting below from the data in the command channels, few see the updates on the tower's reaction to the breaching effort. The combatants still engaged are suddenly thrown into absolute darkness when all systems fail. A deep hum fills the air for a second, followed by the high-pitched whine of capacitors. Teams near the control room in the center of the orbital report the equipment's power level spiking to maximum. The room is engulfed in radiation as an unmeasurable amount of power is fed through the system. Units on the surface see a massive dark green beam of energy erupt from the station back to the spire. Augury units on the surface are overwhelmed by the spike of radiation, as the ground around the immediate base of the spire is instantly vaporized. The beam lingers for what feels like an eternity, until suddenly it is gone. Then come the shaking violent spasms, erupting as structures thrust from the ground in linear pathways that the ships in orbit can see encircle the entire planet. These twisted towers are recognizably STC in origin, but have the same protrusions as the main spire. Before the dust can settle, these new structures begin slowly pulsing a blinding green light in unison. A hazy field begins to emanate from each of the structures, slowly rippling out until it collides with the fields from the neighboring towers. Within minutes, the entire atmosphere is enveloped in this unidentified miasma, and Vox traffic from the surface falls silent. Astartes' craft in orbit, unable to ascertain the nature of what's encircled the planet, move to begin bombardment operations. The first salvos from the macro cannon and plasma batteries detonate on the barrier with no effect. Each successive volley sees more and more guns added, yet still the barrier remains unscathed. In a final attempt to have some effect, the fleets reposition again to bring all available weaponry to bear. With every barrel trained on the same position, an apocalyptic barrage of a scale that would have easily exterminated a planet this size is unleashed. The impact sight is blinding, as every destructive munition available to the fleet impact the target. After several moments of sustained fire, the last rounds of the salvo connect with the barrier. As the cogitators process and validate the readings from the augury arrays, the blast shutters are drawn back, allowing the barrage point to come into view. Almost simultaneously, the data feed confirms that nothing has changed. The shimmering gleam of whatever encompassed the planet remained intact. The sensorium was still failing to ascertain the field's composition. Whatever had its hold on Nazar was clearly beyond Imperial knowledge. In unison, the pulsing lights flare even brighter, and a high-pitched static burst rips through all of the Vox systems in range. With the next flash, another howling scream tears through the speakers. Then again, and again. Each subsequent signal comes faster than the last, accelerating steadily until finally the beacons stop diming at all, and the crackled noise from the Vox is incessant. After a second, the lights begin to shift towards the white spectrum, and with it, the pitch of the interference followed. As a twisted audio crosses into the hypersonic range, the pale bubble encasing this world explodes outward. The previously impenetrable miasma hurtles towards the void, passing over the ships in orbit and sending them awry. Void shields flickered as the units in tight coherence found themselves washed into each other. Augury and Vox systems, having previously been set to maximum gain in an attempt to pierce the barrier, were near blown out, as all planetary Vox traffic was no longer inhibited. Almost instantly, the masters of the fleets present were screaming for damage reports. As full assessments rolled in, the damage to critical systems was mostly minimal, with one exception. On all but the largest ships, the warp drives had simultaneously powered down. Repair crews were dispatched, but their efforts would prove to be in vain, as the drives refused to reawaken. Any ship still capable of making the transition to the immaterium scrambled to do so, unwilling to risk the weapon firing a second time and potentially becoming stuck themselves. This left many of the crew which brought the legions to Nazar stranded here. Faced with only a single option, to continue inward and secure resources to fuel their efforts in sector, in the hopes of discerning what lies at the heart of Phyrix, and if what they find will unlock the key to returning to the wider war.
All right, guys, welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed the last chapter of the Outer Reaches campaign story. First of all, we want to really shout out Voldemort's Guide to Warhammer for the amazing voice acting work that he did. We really tried hard to level up the story for this event, and he just really came through and delivered something that I think not only just is truly professionally done, but added a whole nother level to the presentation of Phyrix. So huge shout out to him. And I guess I kind of want to, before we move on, I just want to sort of touch base. just to clear up any kind of questions maybe that some people might have coming out of this last chapter. So with everything that's happened at the planet and all the craziness, I think it's important to understand that at the core of it all, way back when we first started planning Adepticon, we knew that, hey, we're going to let Primarchs in, we're going to let named characters in. It's just we're going to let everything happen. And when we sat down to actually write the story for the Outer Reaches, one of the things we discussed as a group is, what do we want Phyrix to be going into the next event? And that sort of prompted us to go this direction where now, after the weapon has fired off on the Tsar and the ships are knocked awry in space, the ships that were able to escape were the largest ships in the fleet. So we've narratively provided a reason why Phyrix will be no longer a Primarch / named character event series. Judd's been hard at work at sort of getting the rules down for the new system that we're going to use. We're going to do a custom Praetor / Centurion builder. And I think it's going to be better for Phyrix long term because we really want want everybody to lean into the narrative. All four of us in the team that run it have been deeply involved with Phyrix from the get-go, and our armies that we play strongly reflect the story of Phyrix. And we want everybody that joins us, if you're coming to an event once a year or you follow the series wherever it goes, to have the same sort of ability to unlock your storytelling, right? For some people, maybe even step outside of their comfort zone to like figure out what they want, to come up with a story that you like. And I think, at least for me personally, when you have named characters or you have Primarchs in a system, it sort of causes a dissonance for me because I know the stories of these Primarchs, and I know that there was never a point in the book series where all the Primarchs showed up into this weird little side system that doesn't mean very much to the Imperium as a whole, and duked it out for 3 days and then went their merry way, right? So we wanted to narratively hook in a way to introduce the system. We don't quite have it ready to go right now, but it's in the process, and we'll preview that probably in our next episode, very likely. So hope everybody enjoys it. Trust me, I think this is for the better. We all think this is for the better going forward, and I think when you have the details of the new system that we're going to use, you're going to really appreciate what we're trying to do here. So with the narrative stuff out of the way,
Yeah.
I just want to shift over and move into our sponsor shout outs. Is that good? Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Let's
So,
go.
as I mentioned earlier, we're lucky enough to have had a lot of sponsors for Adepticon. We had 28 total. None of what we did at Adepticon would have been possible without every single one of these guys. We talked about how we enjoyed having the huge prize support. We talked about how we were able to get the tables together that we wanted to get together for the event. That all came directly from the vendors that stepped up to support us for Adepticon. So we just want to take some time, thank everybody. I think there was definitely a couple that we wanted to really shout out. Obviously, most guys know that Death Ray Designs has been a huge proponent of our work. Have been since David was doing this way back in 2017. A lot of our tables are touched by them, and we are hugely thankful to everything that they do for us. Game Mat EU, always coming through with the mats for the events. Anything that we need, they've been able to get to us in time. That's been really awesome. Lucas, do you want to talk about Wargame Model Mods and Blood and Skulls?
Yeah, so Wargame Model Mods, they sent us some price support for the event, as well as some really cool buildings for a table that we're going to be constructing in the future.
Mm-hmm.
We have one of their tables already. We have the solar farm. has some of their buildings, and one of the coolest things about those buildings in particular is that they actually disassemble and pack flat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like an MDF building that you don't have to like completely glue together. So it's very good for somebody who has like a limited amount of space. You can like take the building apart and pack it completely flat on top of each other, and so it's only this tall and this big.
Yeah.
So like it would be really good for somebody who doesn't have a lot of space, which is awesome. So we're going to utilize some more of those buildings because getting as much terrain in as small a tote as possible is something that we're kind of thinking of.
Especially
So
when you carry around the number
I
of
really
tables
like
that
their
we
stuff.
carry around, right?
Right. Exactly. So I really like their stuff, and they, like I said, they were kind enough to send us a care package with some stuff to give away, as well as the stuff for our future table.
Mm-hmm.
And Blood and Skulls Industries has been a third-party bits seller for as long as I can remember. They make the most famous thing they make is those wraparound tracks for the Mark II-B Land Raider. But they make a couple other things. They make a bespoke tank that you can buy. They make like a wheel kit for the Chimera that's actually really cool. They make some other stuff. They gave us some prize support as well. They gave us 2 of their like tanks, which we gave away. Creature Caster hooked us up. They did 3 of their like big demons, like really nice big models. The really cool one. What's the really cool one called? Mechanatrix.
Yeah, it had just launched. It had just launched at Adepticon,
Yeah, it's like
or
brand
right before
new.
Adepticon, and it was amazing.
Right before. Yeah, it's like a female succubus meets Archmagos. Very cool model.
Yeah.
I'll use the same joke the guy told me when I picked it up. He said she has beautiful eyes.
Yeah.
Beautiful
it's
eyes.
Suddenly hearing
Um
I'm suddenly hearing heavy binaric breathing.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, and
then Battle Foam hooked us up. They sent us a couple things. They sent us like a travel pack that Chris Pretty from TFL ended up winning. He actually put his stuff in our trailer to go home, and I saw him using it.
yeah,
So that was pretty cool.
he
He
was
had
awesome.
already packed some of his stuff in the travel kit.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we want to shout out Brutal Cities really big, because they signed on fairly last minute, like with only a couple of weeks to go, and they were able to get us stuff overnighted. Well, not overnight, as close to overnight as you can get from Australia.
It was express.
Yeah, and we were able to throw that together, and honestly, that high-rise building and that table, for as short a time frame as we had to put it together, I was so happy with how that table turned out. And I'm looking forward to having some conversations with him to see what his thoughts are on that. And then, you
guys put it together in like 10 days.
Yeah. It was really, really cool.
Like
yeah,
we
together
assembled it in
10 days.
Yeah, we assembled it in 1, and then it took 10 days to paint because it is a beautiful piece of Eric
Absolutely.
knocked that out like a champ.
So that was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing some weathering work on it, so it'll come back even better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So look forward to it. It's going to be cool.
I think so too.
And we have a couple prototype kits from them that we're going to be putting together, and then also right now, just to shout them out, they're doing an so they have a really cool thing on their website that's augmented reality, and so you can actually take their buildings with, if you're not familiar with augmented reality, you basically like look through your phone, and it uses the camera on your phone and the screen to like project whatever item is in augmented reality onto your surface. So you can actually like take your, look at your table through your phone and get an idea of like the scale of all of their kits put together and all kinds of stuff. And right now they're running a competition where you take a screenshot of the most creative way you can think to use this augmented reality function of their buildings, and I think it's $100 gift card for them.
Yeah,
or something.
it is.
Pretty sure it's $100 gift card.
It was
so
actually...
they got a couple. Yeah, they got like a week left on their on that promos.
And that was actually really
So
funny
go
because
check 'em
it
out.
actually, like, I think it spawned out of them I think he was trying to implement the augmented reality so that people could see how big the buildings are on their tables. Because they are big kits, right? Some of them are huge. Like the one we have
Yeah.
is huge. And then I guess when he imported it, they ended up being like life-sized representations versus tabletop representations. And so he
Or
was
like
just
he
like,
meant to.
we're making this a
Maybe
giveaway.
he like meant to put them in millimeters and put them in
Mhm.
centimeters or something.
Yeah, yeah. And they're
Yeah,
monstrous.
yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah, because when you look at the scale of it too,
Huge kit.
you look at how big those buildings are on the table. If you haven't yet, go check out the photo dump from Adepticon and you'll see it. Every time I took pictures of that row of tables, that building is easily identifiable because it is clearly the tallest thing for 6 tables, right? Like it is huge.
Yeah.
And it was
The
really
shantytown
awesome.
has to have 3 buildings stacked on top of each other
Yeah.
to make the height of that.
Mhm. Yep, and I think we're going to be working with him in the future some more. I'd really like to maybe even level that tower up even just a little bit more. You know, if you're going to be high and you're going to be tall,
Uh-huh.
you might as well just be a little bit ridiculous with it, right? Like, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to talking to him once we do our vendor follow-ups after this episode's done, actually. And then one of the last ones I really wanted to point out, and this is going to segue really well into the next section, um, is Tinker House. Tinker House came through, gave us a bunch of prize support, like a bunch. I think almost every day Tinker House stuff was being
Yeah.
given away. For those that aren't familiar, Tinker House is they use a they use like binding board, and it's more of like a cardboardy type material, but it's also water resistant and it's pre-printed. It's very, very fun to play with, actually. On the Brutal Cities, because Brutal Cities and Tinker House were newer table sponsors. We didn't have a full table dedicated to each yet, so we melded them together, and that actually ended up working out really well. Because the Tinker House Scouter Terrain, probably the biggest cheat code in Horus Heresy table design going forward. You know, for like 10 or 15 minutes worth of work, you can knock out 3 crates. You don't have to paint them. They play just like regular crates play. They look mostly like regular crates look. And when you get a whole set of them together, they look
Right.
awesome, you know? But actually
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about the printing. They do a
Mhm.
really good job of like making it weathered.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like fresh. Like they've done a really good job about how they've printed the thing, the printing on there and like made it look really weathered and like they have like these like corporate names and stuff on the side of the crates. And, like
Mhm.
they fit well. They look good.
They really
They're
do.
not specific to Warhammer. Like they don't
Yeah.
have Aquilas or anything on them, but they fit. I think they fit in the universe really well. And
Yeah,
we're actually trying to create something that's a little bit more agnostic than like the Games Workshop ruins that have like skulls and Aquilas all over them.
yeah.
We're trying to go for a little bit more brutalist, like industrial uh,
Yeah.
vibe on a lot of our newer stuff. So they fit really well with that.
Yeah, and it's also really nice because it builds basically like MDF, so it's super fast to put together. You can prototype tables really quickly with it. Um, they also the other thing I really
It's cheap.
appreciate about it, the price is insane when you compare it to real kits. The amount of stuff that
Yeah,
you
it's
can
very
get,
affordable.
the amount of stuff you can get from them for a cost of like a Games Workshop Ruins kit is insane. And I think that very well positions them in a unique space in there, right? Because MDF even now has sort of creeped towards, they're still affordable, but people are upping the intricacy, which ups the amount of wood, which ups the price. And these guys are come in and they're just like, we're going to sell terrain that everybody can use for almost every 28 millimeter system, and it's got a unique aesthetic. It's all pre-painted, and I think it's worth I think it's worth the investment, especially if you're someone who's not quite sure they want to dive fully into what a full table might be, full of normal terrain. That's
Or right, one of the cool things about them is that it stores really well.
Mhm.
Like you don't need like a special storage solution because it's all made of cardboard effectively. It bumping up against something isn't really gonna break it. So
Right.
like you can basically store you just like,
Yeah, just
into a
arm
tote
scrape
and
it.
like pack it away, right? So you
Mhm.
don't really need like a super like expensive storage solution to
Yeah.
store it all. So for somebody who like doesn't have a lot of space, doesn't have a lot of money, or doesn't have a lot of time to put something like this together,
Mhm.
it's really good for all three of those solutions. And I'll be honest, I do think that like painted and weathered MDF or plastic probably look better at the end. I think that for what you put into it, it pays dividends of what you get out of it. Like it's definitely better, you know,
Absolutely.
than
And I
what you put
Well,
in as far as the money and the time
anybody
goes.
anybody who's bought their own terrain thinking, "Oh, I'm going to paint this up." Like I've in my hobby like life, I've played on a lot of unpainted or just or just like primed terrain. This is a good way for you to get
Exactly.
in, have good-looking terrain that your buddies at your like local shop or your buddies who come over are going to be like, "Oh, that's really cool."
Mhm.
And you know, especially since terrain painting is just it's time consuming. Like
Yeah.
we do it because we love it.
Mhm.
We love telling the stories on the board.
Right.
But if I were just new to the hobby, but I wanted a cool looking board because I'm still learning to paint my miniatures, you know, like
Yeah.
it's so affordable and so good looking that it's like if you're new to the system and you
Right.
want a board to play at home, 100%, this terrain.
Yeah.
It's a great option.
It definitely is. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm really
Painting
excited.
$900 worth of GW terrain is very low on the priority list for a lot of
Yeah.
new players.
Oh, good God.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
You know what it's
extremely
called?
low.
You know what it's called? It's called prime and dry brush.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's
Which is fine, but you have to have gone and bought it first, and then like we won't get into too bad about Games Workshop, but like
no.
a lot of those cool new ruins kits are no longer even available. They literally brought them out and then sold them in like 2 or 3 sets, and then now you can't even buy them. I
Right.
don't know what they're thinking,
Yeah. Who
but
knows, man? I
you
will.
literally there's only on their website there's only one of those ruins kits.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
for
But again,
tilting.
I'm not trying to harp on
Yeah.
GW. Yeah, I'm
I
not
will say
trying to
that
harp on GW, but
No,
Tinker
no, no.
House is awesome and
Tinker House,
available
Tinker
and
House is
cheap.
awesome. Yeah, and actually, it's really exciting news because, and the reason we've kind of been harping on everything great about Tinker Turf is, like I said, leading up to the event, I had my first exposure to their products, getting the scatter terrain together for the Brutal City table, and they were actually at Adepticon, and Lucas and I spent a considerable amount of time down there talking to those guys, and the guys that run it are super super cool. They're definitely really
Yes.
in on what they're selling, and they actually stepped up and are sponsoring an entirely full table of their stuff with us, which is always really fun. I love, honestly, these are the tables I love to build when we get to work with a vendor and really not merge their ideas of how they want their stuff presented with our ideas of how we tell a story with a table. And I think it's going to end up being really good. um, they donated a ton of initial support for that, and we're in the process of getting it all together and then start working with them iteratively. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh,
Really happy. um, so with our sponsors thanked, I guess the next thing we need to move into is uh, our next event. I mean, we
What?
yeah. Oh, we have a new event coming.
Tell me all about it.
Yeah. We
would
just
you like to know more?
Yeah, would you like to know more? We just finalized negotiations with that sounds really formal. We finally had the final talks with the Midwest Conquest guys. For those unaware, Midwest Conquest is a 40K competitive scene event here in Kansas City. It's actually going to be run out of Independence, Missouri, which is a suburb for those not here. it's going to be Memorial Day weekend, May 26th through the 28th. We actually already have sort of rough laid out everything that we want to do for that weekend. Tickets are going to be $80. They're going to go live on April 15th on Best Coast Pairings. Don't worry about the reminders. Set your reminders if you want, but I guarantee you we're going to be talking about this like crazy once these tickets are available to purchase. We've got a rough layout for what we're going to do that weekend, so if you're interested, listen up. Friday night, we're looking at a optional kind of ZM games, but more on a 1 to 2 player kind of situation. We're not going to do a Mega ZM Friday night.
Conventional ZM.
Yeah, conventional ZM. I think it'll lend
Yeah,
itself a
singles
little
or
better.
maybe doubles.
Yeah, I think it'll lend itself better towards as people are arriving to jump in and jump out, play quick games. I think it'll be a good way to spend a Friday night, get everybody back together, reintroduced, and circled around for the next morning. Saturday morning, we'll do our normal 2 rounds of Frontline at 3,000 points, I believe. And then Saturday evening, we're going to do the Mega ZM is going to make its return. And I'm personally looking forward. Yeah, we have a couple of tweaks. Due to some unforeseen circumstances, Judd wasn't able to make it to Adepticon this year, but he is the guy when it comes to Mega ZM. And there were a lot of, let's say, story hooks that Judd had planned that didn't quite make it to Adepticon. But we're going to deliver at this event. I guarantee you the Mega ZM is going to be fun for everybody, and a good reason to drink, right? Let's be honest. And then Sunday we'll have another 2 rounds of Frontline on Sunday. Do our final giveaways at the end of the day and send people back home. A reminder: most people are going to have Monday off because of the holiday. We understand that families like to get together and barbecue. Kansas City's a big barbecue town, so if you need a barbecue fix, we can definitely handle that. But we hope that you can take the time out and come back down for another little trip through Phyrix, right?
There's one thing I wanted to talk about that. There are initially going to be 20 spots available. If we sell those out, there's a possibility for expansion. But if you want to guarantee a ticket, you should buy them early.
Yes.
Another thing, we've never used Best Coast Pairings. Don't get turned off about Best Coast Pairings. Like, I know it's for competitive play, but the only reason that we're using it is because that's what they're using.
Yeah.
I don't care about, we're not submitting lists or any garbage like that. Like, we literally just are using it to collect money and sell the tickets. Other than that, we're not going to use the app. So don't think that has any, you know what I mean? Don't worry that we're going to have some competitive like pairing system or anything like that. We're going to run it just like we always run it. We're just going to, that's just the facility, the processor we're going to use to take payments and sell tickets.
Yeah. Yeah. And it all stems from that's what they're using for their badging, and we're leveraging the same badging system as them. So yeah, it's not going to be a big deal. If anybody has any issues with it when it goes live, just reach out to one of the Phyrix guys and we will get somebody in touch with you to get that sorted. But like Lucas said, purchase tickets early if you can commit. If we need to open up more space, we've already let them know that, we potentially may need more tables. This just seemed like a pretty good guesstimate based on the initial response that we were getting from the people that we asked. So I guess, it'll be just like any other Phyrix event. We're going to do a full narrative write-up, full audio thing, and deliver the whole shebang. If it's 10 people or 200 people, Phyrix moves on the same pace, right? Well, guys, I think, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else that you want to cover tonight?
Nope.
No?
I think that's good. I think we've thanked everyone that needs to be thanked. Again, thank all of those people. Thank them again because it couldn't be done without them. And I'm sure we'll have more to add as we go forward because we're only getting bigger.
Yeah. I did actually have one thing that I just remembered. Lucas, why don't you run us down, or let's talk about the pot. So for those interested in hearing more about us or more of our stories or more of fielding questions about Phyrix itself or Adepticon. We've scheduled quite a bit of podcast appearances, and so we will be all over the place. If you are in the Horus Heresy space, we just did a cut with
Yep.
Max from Barefoot Miniatures earlier today. But why don't you give them a rundown of the other podcasts that we have booked so people can pay attention if they need to?
Absolutely. So we, like I said, we had Max from Barefoot Miniatures. You can find him over on YouTube. We will link his channel in this video description. Actually, what's going to happen is it's a 2-part podcast, and the first half is going to be on his channel, and the second half is going to be over here on our channel. So check him out. He has a lot of Horus Heresy content. He's a little bit unique in the space. He has some like video reviews of different like books, publications, and stuff like that are really awesome. And he works closely with another channel called Sector Wargaming. So check them out as well. They do battle reports and all that stuff. They basically use the same studio space. He talks about that a little bit in our episode. Then our plan is to go on the Iterators podcast. You can find them on your favorite podcatcher of choice.
I'm a fan.
We plan on going on Horus Heresy Accountability Buddies. Again, I'm a pretty, I don't want to say fairly regular host, but I go on there sometimes. So we plan on going on there. We plan on going on a new podcast called Fires of Betrayal. That is Martin Emery's podcast. If you don't know who that is, he used to run a podcast called God Engine Cast, which was an Adeptus Titanicus podcast, and he's now basically relaunched a podcast that has his old podcast was like just him, and sometimes he had guests, but like he basically did most of the episodes by himself, and that's always an interesting dynamic. Is basically he's just talking to a microphone the whole time. So he decided to open it up, and he has like guest hosts on all the time. Like he basically has this big pool of hosts, and whoever's free when they start recording goes on the show and does their thing, and it's pretty unique dynamic. So check them out. We'll be on there at some point in the next couple weeks. Age of Darkness with JP. We're going to be on there. Am I forgetting any?
I don't think so. I did want to shout out that on Max's episode, what's really cool, because I really want to push this one. I think it was really fun to talk with him because of the spin of the episode. So this was Max's first time at Adepticon, and so it was very juxtapositioned versus his first time at Adepticon, seeing everything for the first time, seeing the spectacle, versus ours as being first time event runners and long time Adepticon attendees, right? And it made for a really interesting dynamic. I love the discussions with him. I think we talked for way longer than we even were even putting out. So definitely check it out. I think it's set to drop on Tuesday, so it'll probably be the most recent one after ours drops, basically from timelines, I believe. But we're going to be everywhere. That's the important note to take away from this. So if you listen to these other podcasts, you're going to hear from us again, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Right? Awesome.
Yep.
Well, if you guys don't have anything else, I say we wrap it up for this time, and we'll pick it up next time.
Works for me.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to listen with us today. Hopefully you enjoyed our post-Adepticon talks, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.
Bye, guys.
See ya.